I did some terrible things to my girlfriend. I'm looking for opinions and how to get my issues resolved so I don't end up in the same position again. There's so much more to the story, but this is off the top of my head. I'm 24, female. She was 22, female. I'll call her TT, and I met a month or two after I'd been broken up with by my first girlfriend of 6 months, who I felt love, bombed me, lied about a bunch of things, then just cut me off. I was still hurting from that. I took T out on a few dates. We kissed on the third, but I was too anxious to go further. T ghosted me after that. I just continued to work on myself, move out of home, and save some money. But we matched in Tinder again, hooked up a couple times, but I just wasn't feeling it, and I feel like she wasn't feeling it either. A month later, out of the blue, she texts, "Sorry for bothering you," I caved in and replied, and we basically started spending all our time together. Until about 2 months after we go on a trip for her birthday, she ghosted me for the whole day until I texted her, "Can you reply so I know you're okay?" at 11 p.m., and she instantly replied saying she was at work. It didn't sit right with me the next day. We see each other and I ask her about it. He was very vague and the story wasn't smooth, it just didn't feel right. She also seemed to have completely changed her views on what she wanted to do with work and study. I brushed it off as some residual trust issues from my previous girlfriend. But every time we would have a little argument, I'd end up asking her what she did that day. She ghosted me, and every time it was a slightly different story. A few months went by and I'd occasionally check her phone, found a few. Me, I waste happy with her talking to. Due to the sort of things they talked about. None of it naked, just things I'd told her in trust not to tell anyone. We talked it out and she stopped talking to them. Then one night, I guess we maybe had an argument about her lies, and I went so deep through her phone. Signing into and kink Reddit, I could find with all of her email addresses. I felt so yuck and gross when I was doing it, and I couldn't sleep at all. I found her posting on local Reddit page, right up until the day she ghosted me. This is where I feel it starts to get extra bad. I go into all her social media and post stories and post saying T is a bad person and go sleep another people for money. Logged out of all her sokas on her phone and waited till she woke up. I acted natural, just waiting for her to notice. Well, she found it, started bawling her eyes out, and I just raged at her, calling her every horrible word. You could imagine I'd never done anything like that before. I didn't know I even could. We end up talking it out and continuing on. Next day, I go to work, I check her location, and she's on the other side of town. I ask what she's doing, and T says she's with her sister. I did not believe that at all, but agree, got home, acted natural. I woke up before her and went on her phone. In her deleted texts were texts with her abusive ex-boyfriend. They met up the day before. I fill up a bucket of water and dump it on her while she's asleep. She wakes up crying, wondering what's happening, and denies everything. But I show her the texts. I take her phone and keys because she wants to leave. I'm just screaming and yelling at her. It ends up going for about an hour. We ended up down the street, screaming and yelling. We end up talking it out again. But later on, I found out she had been going most days to see her ex while I was at work. About a few weeks later, she crashed her car. She had no job either. This was the end of the world for her, and she stopped going to study, got super depressed, claiming she couldn't go study because she's got no car. I had a spare car, but no, that's not good enough. I offered to drop her off, pick her up, but she refused, saying she'd rather to leave life than either of those options. This went on for 3 weeks. Constant trying to leave life while I was at work. I couldn't focus, kept messing up. I asked her if we could have a break in the relationship so I could focus on work, so I don't become homeless. No breaks? She said, she's not with me, she'll leave life because she's got nowhere else to go, so I stopped going to work. My boss came around a few times to see what was happening, and I just claimed I was depressed. I lost my job. I lost the place I was staying because I couldn't pay rent. We were now spending all day, every day together. Her just being a broken mess, and me not. Being much better, T wouldn't do anything. I had to force to shower and eat. The day would not get better until we had a big argument that usually ended up with her standing over me, yelling while I'm crying. My mind was turning to jelly. It was like a loop over and over again. Every day played out exactly the same. Just her starting a certain sentence started to give me shaking anxiety and my head would start spinning. She eventually got another car. but I had to do some repairs on it. I got very frustrated telling her I'd smash all her windows of. She used this car to sneak off to see any guys. A couple weeks later, she went and saw a guy friend. I asked her to block months ago. I was enraged. I dumped 20 liters of dirty engine oil on her back seat, took her phone and ran down the road, called the guy and asked if they sleep. He said no, T breaks up with me, but we talked it out and she continued staying with me in a caravan until she found a new guy to take her in. She tells me we are still gonna be friends, but each time we saw each other, she just seemed to lie about everything. It pissed me off so much, I tried to cut her off, but I couldn't help myself and kept finding a reason to reach out. I wanted my radio back. She kept making excuses and I kept blowing up at her on text, insulting her like every other time, calling her a liar. Today was the last day I blew up at her and told her to not worry about the radio because she's full of lie. We had an hour-long text argument, both saying mean stuff to each other. Then at the end I said sorry and begged her to block me on everything. Because I can stand the lie, but I can't help myself. I hate the person I've become. Every time I did something up, I thought it was because I wanted her leave me. But as soon as I calmed down, I didn't want her to leave. Communication was never good from her side, even from the beginning. Words never matched actions. Every promise would be broken. She would tell she didn't remember talking about it, even if it was the thing every time. The relationship went sour since my first blow-up, but I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to be alone. But her presence only made me angry. I blame it on reactive abuse, after all the promises and lies that built up to it. But even before that, I should have trusted my gut instead of trusting what she tells me. You need therapy badly. Go to Psychology Today and find one. Also, if you don't trust someone, you have nothing in a relationship. You should never feel the need to go through someone's phone. Even if they have cheated, being abusive is not okay. You're still not healed from your past relationship. You need to be single and grow. Get help. You're still young, you can change and have healthy relationships if you make the effort. This is an insane story. At the very least, I would say both of you badly need some therapy. As for anything more, well, it was kind of jumbled, which made it difficult to see and process what happened when. But I hope the two of you are not together. There's a shit ton of issues that need to be worked on before getting into any other romantic or intimate relationships. You say you did terrible things to your girlfriend. Okay, it's good to be accountable. Hold her accountable too. You two aren't right for each other. At the very least, not right now. Story 2. Been married for 12 years, had a lot of rough patches, fought often, but always thought we loved each other. Started to notice in recent years that I was the only one to come back and say, sorry, the only one to admit fault, the only one to try to bring us back together. We had been verbally and emotionally abusive to one another at times, which I am not proud to say, but it was pretty mutual, and we were usually able to get around it and have a good life. A couple of years ago, we were having a rough patch, and I made the mistake of inviting a friend to possibly be a third with us. We exchanged some messages and flirting and pictures and a little bit of fantasizing, but never actually engaged the other partner. I got a bad feeling one day and went through her phone and realized that she was carrying on with this individual, separate from our mutually consented communications, and that she was mocking me and complaining about our marital troubles. I called her out on it and called off the consideration of inviting this person into our bedroom, and she continued to communicate with them behind my back for months until I found it via email. When I called her out on it, she complained that she felt unsupported and that her mental health wasn't good because of the stress of our problems, and this person had given her mental health support and stopped her from wanting to leave life. So because of that, she felt it was fine that she flirted and exchanged conversation with them. She blamed my poor behavior in the marriage for her, needing to have an outlet and share the times that I stressed her. I thought this was all selfish, but she knocked it off and I thought things were all right. Fast forward a year, and she presents me with a joint petition of divorce. I reluctantly sign it, and she never files it. I figured this is a good sign that we are working on making things better. And so I continue trying to be a husband. In March of this year, she apparently mentally checked out of our marriage and started looking for rooms to rent and other places to live without telling me. She began a friendship with someone whom she met through a veterans group. whom she was going to rent a room from a man 20 years older than us, and began a flirtationship that included complaining about our marital problems. She filed for divorce in May. I was blindsided by the filing and asked her to stay. We genuinely missed the mail and missed the first appearance, and her filing was dismissed. She said she would consider filing again, and I again begged her to stay. I've been trying to convince her to stay all summer. She refiled for divorce in September as soon as the kids went back to school. Come to find out, the flirtationship became a full-blown affair. Immediately after filing, the first time she started sleep with this guy, when she would go to his house to take space, because supposedly the anxiety of our problems was too much for her to stay. According to her, it wasn't love, it was just a safe place, to her credit. I guess she's supposedly didn't start sleeping with this guy until after she had already filed the first time, apparently not figuring that her first filing would not go through. I'm the most hurt by the deception. I was genuinely trying to win her back all summer, and I would not have been if I knew she was somebody on the side. We also had sleep at one point over the summer, although she claims the two of us, quote, didn't cross, whatever that means. So we now have a second active divorce filing. I found out through text records about the guy she was asleep and asked him to leave while we worked through our divorce. Surprisingly, he was very apologetic, threw her under the bus immediately, and said that she misrepresented where we were at maritally, but also took responsibility for his share of a bad situation, admitted that a shoulder to cry on became an empty place. I lashed out at him in anger, and he actually took it pretty well and responded with kindness and validated my frustration and bitterness and hurt feelings. My wife legitimately hasn't talked to him since I confronted him. He apologized, but she won't. She said she figured the marriage was over, so she doesn't see what she did as wrong. I'm wrecked. I know I've been unwise at times, but I had no clue. I'm now looking at dividing up my children's home, and my children having to grow up in 2 homes. It's not very affordable out here, and we live in an affluent community in a reasonable cost of living area. I make a good salary and have always been the breadwinner, but I don't make enough to support 2 homes. We live in a state where the affair would make her at fault. But that means I have to put it on public record, and our children may read that someday I also have to prove that the affair caused the breakdown of the marriage, and she will likely argue that she felt the marriage broke down prior, and that's why she was looking to move out. I just want her to withdraw, or them to dismiss the filing and us to work it out. I also still love my wife. Even if I am unwise, I just want her to stay. I'm sure I'll be ripped apart for that last statement. I just needed to write this in a safe place to feel seen. It's not something I can really tell a whole lot of people about. I went to a counseling appointment the other day and talked about it, and it didn't make me feel half as much better as I hoped it would. I never thought that at almost 40 years old and having fought in more than one war, that I would be needing to reach out to strangers on the internet for validation like a Facebook teenager. I just want to love this woman. She is lovely in her own right. Even if she is not the most beautiful, she is funny and silly and creative and a great mom and a great lay. And she was overseas with us the first time, and nobody can relate to that. My heart is wrecked. I just want her to stay. Why do you want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with you, much less love you? I mean, what do you get from this unhappy marriage? She doesn't want to stay with you, and you beg for it. Accepting her actions, how does she treat you? Without any respect. I believe what your end of the game is. Beg her to love you. Let her go and feel better. I'm not telling you to listen to me. We all have to do what we think is more right, but I think that what is happening to you should be worked out and talked through, spending a lot of time on it. But the most important thing is to understand whether you are ready to spend this lot of time. I think you should go to a Semyon psychologist and also find a specific moment at which you started disagreements and disputes. I understand how hard it will be given because most likely the initiator of such actions will only be you. But if you do not take any action, you will blame only yourself, as in my opinion. If any disputes and disagreements begin in the relationship, then it is the fault of both, but to varying degrees. But the most important thing is to understand that both are to blame, Judging by your post, I saw that you wrote that over time, only you were the initiator of problem solutions. And I'm sorry that at the moment, only you can give love. So please think again if you need the attention of a person who is not able to give you his attention and love. It seems to me that it's time to end this part of life and start working on a new, brighter, and happier one. So don't burden yourself and don't waste your strength on people who don't need you. And first of all, help yourself and then help others. I wish you good luck in the future. Be happy. You want her to stay to appease your confidence. It's apparent that she hasn't been invested in the marriage for a long while, and it's only you groveling. The embarrassment of your continued acceptance of cheating and disrespect is astonishing. Put yourself in therapy now.